Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I sit in my car and read out chapter 5 to you. So, in chapter 4, we, he shared a lot of things about politics, about how he actually entered and rejected politics, and that was perhaps the prime focus of that, and his own philosophy or methodology for social welfare, his focus on helping the people. Right, so before I proceed any further, I wanted to share a little small secret with you. This is a video book of A Mirror to the Blind by Maulana Abdusattar Edhi, as transcribed by Tamina Durrani. Now, do you know how many video books or audiobooks have I read or heard in my life? Okay, I'll let you take a wild guess. What? You give up? All right. None. None at all. Why am I telling you this? I'm not unselling myself. I know I'm not the best voice artist some people refer to. But the point is that the best way to experience a book is to read the book. There's nothing better than reading the book. If you don't read the book in the French accent, then there's absolutely no benefit for you. So you can go to the rendezvous ahead and come back. That's how the French spell or pronounce rendezvous. Rendezvous. I heard that from a Frenchman in Paris, so I can't be wrong. Right, chapter 5. Why I do this anywhere I get the time? Because I want to finish the book, and I don't want this effort to go waste. The Maiman in me, the Edhi in me wants to make sure that this effort is shared. Like, I'm reading, I'm learning, and while I'm reading and learning, so are you. It takes me some extra time. I go back, I download these videos from my iPad or my cell phone, collate them into a video editor and do a bit of jazz it up a bit, and then upload it. It takes time, a little bit of time. But it's worth it. Say an extra hour, maybe an hour and a half. But I guess I get to share it with the world. There's so many lazy people like I am who would probably not read the book. Imagine if I didn't have the book, what would I do? What choices would I have? I went online. There are no pirated versions available, unfortunately, of Tamina's works. I couldn't see My Feudal Lord pirated, ebooks. I couldn't see this book pirated. So yeah, people like me, we encourage piracy. Shouldn't be talking about this, but nevertheless, another small secret. Yeah, music is pirated. Everything else is pirated. Yeah, people just download music from anywhere and everywhere. Nevertheless, movies. Everybody's downloading movies. Everybody's downloading movies. But who's actually paying for movies? Netflix. Well, that exists in the US. This is not the US. Anyway, chapter 5. Excuse me, just opened my fast. In 1965, India declared war on Pakistan, and the days ahead occupied us with other than routine work. We were rushing to affected areas all over the city of Karachi, rescuing the injured and burying the dead. Curfews and blackouts signaled by the ominous sounds of sirens would make our drivers turn back. But they were stopped by authorities requiring transport for war victims. Children cried for water, people twisted in pain or died in the bombardments. 10 to 15 people would be collected in one van and hurriedly transported to hospitals. 10 to 15 people. The state of emergency brought women, young boys, and girls out of their homes. They volunteered to help in hospitals, train in first aid, and wrap and deliver consignments for soldiers. I had taken a civil defense training course and circulated instruction sheets through a group of active student leaders who supervised the free dispensary I operated for laborers at Mangopir. I had advised them to refrain from politics. Leaders rise on the shoulder of workers and need to retain them in that low position. They cannot afford that you move from under to join the ranks. Your move will make them fall. But they were as yet optimistic and wished to experience the field. I predicted, one day you will join me in furthering the only genuine form of politics, public service. Distractions people call. I have to pause the video. Sorry. Right. So, one day you will join me in furthering the only genuine form of politics, public service. Passing by a room in the Metador office where a group of women sat on their haunches making relief packages, I stopped and opened one to check its contents. When I noticed an item missing, I fumed. Ordered them to open each and every packet and begin again. I ranted against the politicians for creating the mess, at the Muslims for physical, mental, and moral decadence, at the Hindus for ignoring their own poverty, and at all the lazy, good-for-nothing people of the subcontinent. I screamed at the group. Should I employ a policeman to watch over you? A tutor to correct your errors and rectify your mistakes? A sweeper to sweep after you? Clean your own mess. Tidy up with hands that have moving fingers. See? Can you see? I held my hand up and wiggled my fingers in their face. Show me yours. Do they not move? Can you see mine? Do you have eyes? I would have continued my tirade, but was stopped short. Silence for what seemed like an age by a smile at the doorway. It made a complete semicircle at both ends, of which two deep dimples formed. She broke the silence. My khala, which means aunt, sent me to work here. I told Antina, to recruit her, and left abruptly. Then the war involved us all, and I was not free to notice her again, not until after it was over. Her name was Bilkis, her khala, aunt, whose baby had been delivered at the unit the night I had first seen her, had joined the midwifery course before the war. Now they came to the office together. Preoccupied with accounts, I gestured with my hands for them to sit. She seemed to mumble under her breath, moving her lips very obviously, every few seconds blowing her breath in my direction, distracting me. All this happened much to the annoyance of the older woman, who slapped her sharply on her hand in an attempt to stop whatever she was doing. When I shut the file, I discovered that she wished to train as a nurse and asked, is she not too young? Does she not attend a school? Khala looked at her niece with unconcealed affection. She's a grown girl of 16 years, but she hates to study and wants to work instead. I turned to observe her fixed smile, her eyes pleading, demanding approval of her wishes. Controlling the laughter she created in my heart, I agreed, warning her, work is not fun here. Don't let me catch you wasting yours or anybody else's time. She feigned a fearful expression, then quickly conceded to the order by tilting her head sideways, towards each of her shoulders again and again, like a battery-operated toy. Thereafter, I often saw her glide past my office. She would peep and smiling and disappear as fast as a shooting star. I noticed that nobody smiled or laughed in my presence. The tyrannical repetition I had intentionally created to control those who were non-serious had scared away all joviality. That I was a tireless taskmaster was well known. When Bilkis knew, it made the matter different. I tried to be more pleasant, much to the surprise of others, especially Amina, who said, Edhi is smiling, he laughs and talks. The new girls asked playfully, and lives? Had she thought me dead? Perhaps she was right. I had died somewhere along this journey, burying the dead day in and day out. Somebody's only child, somebody's wife, some mother of small children, some father with many mouths to feed. My life was dominated by death. I had witnessed that the presence of man was negated with one breath, removed forever. Excuse me, from where he had tried to settle permanently. I saw it all the time. How could I have lived knowing the end to be around the corner? If not this, the next or the next, but always around the corner. 14 years had passed in this business. I had made social welfare an industry, developed on the very same pattern of the one ambulance and the first dispensary. All these years were spent digging deep foundations. I was certainly not filling, just working, digging deeper and deeper. Now Bilkis was there in her white nurse's uniform, early every morning, and I was on her lookout. Sometimes, catching a glimpse of me, she would freeze, interpret my expression, find me irritable, and walk away quickly. If she found me calm, she gave an electric smile and resumed her work. Sometimes I would hear her laughter from another room enter and would stop to be replaced by a serious expression, which could not conceal her mischief. Her fair complexion and fragile frame, her long hair pulled away from her face and braided down her back, completed the good design essential to attract me. Her skin glowed from an inner source, and was evident of her goodness being deeper than just a facial expression. The spontaneity of her smile made it seem that she had seen no pain in life. Well, automatically the Bluetooth had turned on the audio player. Although her chatter did not distract her from work, I noticed that she talked too much. But she also moved fast, changing dressings in half the time that took others, running up and down the stairs with supplies, making up beds, washing instruments, giving injections and scrubbing the floor with disinfectants, talking through it all the time. Only when she saw a corpse did she become silent. I found out from a neighbor that Bilkis's mother had been shown her husband from a window. Her grandfather had said, "The boy with the red handkerchief is eager to marry you. Look at him and give me your answer." They were married when she was 15, but she was widowed after partition at the age of 19, with 2 sons and a daughter to raise. Bilki's grandmother, her aunt whom they called Khala, and her uncle moved in with the widowed girl. The uncle took charge of the shop they owned, squandering away first its profits and then its capital on gambling and singing parties. Because of her small children, Bilkis's mother could not be convinced by her family to remarry. Instead, she took a job as a teacher for 20 rupees per morning with a lady they referred to as Mariam Ustani, Ustani's teacher. Sometimes she worked in the evening as well and was paid another 20. When Bilkis's paternal uncle's wife committed suicide by burning herself, the family tried to arrange his marriage with her mother, but she refused, saying, "I did not do a mannat for her death. Is there no one else for him to marry? Why should I marry him? I already have 2 sons at home." I liked Rabia Ma, as they called her. She was a solid woman, and for me this instantly went in Bilkis's favor. While Rabia Ma worked, her children were cared for by Khala, who now did night duty as a midwife in the maternity home. Khala said to Amina, "My widowed sister never took zakat. She believes it melts like salt. For her, the only way to earn a living was through labor." Her words told me much about Bilkis's upbringing. I heard from a neighbor that Rabia Ma was a saintly woman who had performed Hajj 4 times, was regular in prayers, completed the recital of the Quran every month, and fasted 11 days of each month. She was also dictatorial and had a bad temper. So I think that's where the synergy was firmly established. The family was very different to my austere one. They were neither intense nor seriously committed to anything except their own lives, spending whatever little extra they made on picnics in Tukimari, the seaside, and on watching every film advertised. Despite their meager resources, they were also compassionate and helpful to others. More than that, they were happy people. They had shifted into 2 rooms in Karadar, the source of salty waters, behind Meetadar, the source of sweet water. Their neighbors told my colleagues that the whole family, while peeling sacks of peanut to obtain extra money for the cinema, joyously sang film songs in chorus. Then they all went off rejoicing in a tonga. I also heard from the same source that Bilkis often escaped from home and accompanied her friends to ladies' matinee shows. Here the girls cleverly broke past long queues by touching the handbags of women in front, who quickly stepped aside for fear of threat while the young group skillfully moved to the top of the line. I was amused. Whenever Bilkis's escapade was detected, she would get a beating. Apparently, she did not mind this and retorted it was worth it. A few slaps didn't make me forget the film. She was always running off to eat something from the large variety of food carts that roamed the streets of Karadar and Meetadar. No, I was not inquiring about her. In fact, I was not earnestly considering her for marriage. But news of her dropped into my hearing from here and there as if I were meant to hear it. She was so naughty at the city school she attended that not a day passed without her being the center of some noisy crisis, because she never did her homework.
Excuse me.
She asked her classmates for notes. If they refused, she threw their books out of the window. Ruckus invariably made the teachers intervene, and Bilquis would scream, "Search my thing. See, where do I have it?" When the danger passed, she would smile and tell the girl, "I told you nicely. I asked you sweetly to please give me your notes, but you did not. Now they're lost. Perhaps you tore them up yourself." If somebody insulted her or was unkind to her, she threw out their pens, their glasses, and their pencil boxes. She did not steal. She just caused distractions and disturbances, and the teachers pulled her ears and banished her daily from class. She would run out into the freedom of the street looking for adventure. Her magnetic smile always fooled the unsuspecting food vendors at the gate. "Marcy, let me sell you chanas. I'll sell them so quickly that you can go home, get more food, and make extra money." She always received permission, bolted up to inform her friends of the ensuing feast, and arrived back at the job. Then she ran back and forth with plates of spiced chickpeas. In between, she had heaped enough on a newspaper behind a bush, and at intervals her friends would sneak it all away. Marcy would say, "A beautiful angel came my way today. We sold out everything so soon." When she failed again, after repeating the same class for 3 years, she was removed from school. She took a sewing course, then embroidery lessons, but both but left both after the teachers beat her for disrupting discipline. In those days, there was no gas, and fuel was cheaply procured by dried cow dung used in place of firewood. The neighbors said that Bilquis always threw a tantrum when she was ordered to lift it from the cowshed. She crumbled all the way to the coal barn, from where she picked pussy and returned to sit on the rooftop, complaining loudly while she mixed the two ingredients into a slushy paste. She would roll the slush into a round ball, hit it flat against the wall so that it stuck flat. Throughout the procedure, she whined and informed everyone that she hated what she was doing. The behavior was repeated when she had to throw out the garbage. Hala often beat her for refusing to go. Again she brooded and grumbled until her chore was done, and returned to shout from the doorstep, "Hala, I have disposed of the dead. Now love me and kiss me because I'm returning from where nobody returns." Hala would hug and kiss her again. I noticed that the lady doctor at the maternity home called for her more than the other girls. "Bilquis, where are you? Bilquis, come here quickly when I call." Everyone was saying, "Bilquis, Bilquis, Bilquis." Suddenly a rush of anger overwhelmed me. I was annoyed with myself more than with her. She was a girl who had not accepted the serious nature of my work and was not pursuing school or an embroidery class. How had I allowed this to happen? Why, when? Flushed, I charged up to the ward, my eyes smearing with tension, my eyes smarting with tension, with the tension. I inquired firmly about her, and the doctor surprised me. "Edhi Sahib, she is the best worker who has passed through my hands yet. Her work is always complete in the shortest time, and without any fuss. Everybody wants her." The patients want her, the girls want her, and I cannot do without her. Taken aback, I cooled off, but this girl was on my nerves. I liked her. I even approved her behavior at school. She was also an accomplished street hawker. In the evening, she would leave draped in a black burqa, which revealed only her face and a translucent complexion, lit up against the dark backdrop. I now recall my nervousness in proposing to Amina and subsequently the long lines of rejection. I was uncomfortable at repeating the procedure. Doubts arose. Bilquis was too happy to consider my life an ideal way to live. The concept of marriage might also be fun and wealth. I decided to stay away and avoid any thought of marriage to her. One day she came with a bowl of carrot halwa and said coyly, "My mother cooked this for you." Nobody had ever bought anything for me before, and I was overly elated that it should be Bilquis. I took the tiffin carrier and opened it in her presence, thinking, surely this means something, perhaps she likes me. My spirit revived at the encouragement, and while eating for the first time at my office table, I thought maybe she looks upon me as a man. An abandoned baby had been brought to the dispensary. I gave her in Bilquis's charge. She would bring her to me for inspection, and I would get a chance to talk to her. I took much time deciding how to propose, afraid of rejection, because this time it mattered. Then, inadvertently, I heard that another boy was proposing to her. I was not surprised. She was at an age when boys think of marriage and girls have many suitors. I heard that he was rich, educated, and handsome. I stalled. The new information discouraged me from furthering the project. I tried to erase the plan as if it had never been formulated, but every time I saw her, I felt my destiny. She had some connection with it. I sensed it by her presence in my world. Her movements matched mine, and her compassion was no less. I was convinced that she was a soulmate who would dream the same dreams as me. When she was present, the shop lit up just like the sky had done when I first saw her. At sunset, she left behind a gloom. Lying on the bench, my world turned dark. There was no guilt in this diversion. It was my right as long as I did not compromise my purpose. I understood well that marriage for a man like me would fail with most women. I had always been conscious of things I could not accept in my wife. Her dedication and commitment would have to equal mine. Her tolerance would have to be abundant. My aims and objectives would have to take root in her heart, and that would need the generosity of giving up an entire life to social service. I'm sure that a conflict of direction, even of the smallest degree, would either crack the relationship or stunt the mission. I had always shuddered at that possibility and prayed for a partner in my work. Another self, another part of me. Reflecting on the marriages around me, I realized that they all stopped just where they needed to begin. The complication arose from the inevitable struggle to establish positions of dominance in the partnership, and that never succeeded in creating a balance. Men invariably took too much, while women built defenses, demanding, whining, and battling to establish their own positions. This man is a psychologist as well. He understands human psyche very well and he describes it amazingly as well. One morning, as she walked up the stairs at the maternity ward, I said, Bilkis. She turned, smiling sweetly, and that encouraged me to ask, will you work with me forever? Her smile disappeared. In fact, the question surprised us both at the spontaneity of what my wife represented to me and her, because she must have been puzzled at its meaning. She said, yes, I will, and ran up. I turned away, thinking, stupid of me not to be clear. She accepted my proposal for work, not marriage. What I had said could not be taken further. Nothing more could be made of it. Another effort was required. I remembered that she might marry another man, and did it again. I heard that Amina bullied all the junior girls, unleashing her aggressiveness at random. They were petrified of her and jealous that I would call her to brief me about work, whereas she made them labor all day and took the credit herself. I also heard that she made fun of me while threatening them. Work harder, do not stop to breathe. Die if you must, or else the Molvi will kill you anyway. At other times, she would boast proudly. He asked me to marry him, but I refused on the pretext that my wedding bed would be the bench outside and guests would be corpses. Everyone laughed and giggled at her insensitivity. Other girls I had proposed to were encouraged and followed suit. He would have starved us to death with his stale bread. God saved us from becoming his wives. I heard that Bilkis would not laugh at them, and instead she snapped back, he's better off alone. Why would he need a wife who didn't need him? Better for him that you refused. With this information, I approached her again. This time, to avoid confusion, I aimed at being direct. I saw her go towards the supply room and followed. She stopped at the doorway to switch on the light. The bulb was fused. She went in, feeling her way in the dark. I followed. Suddenly, she turned around, startled at the presence. I said quickly, it's only me, Edhi. I could barely see her, but when she said, I can see you, I knew she smiled. Without the many forms of sentences I had rehearsed, I blurted, I want to marry you. The words remained suspended in the dark until she cleared her throat and replied, how can I say yes? Speak to Hala about this. I breathed a sigh of relief. Not at her answer, but that at last I had taken a step forward. The same night I spoke to Hala, who said she would talk to Rabiama and let me know in a few days. Bilkis came to work the following morning without any mention of what had transpired. I appreciated her maturity. She was unlike the girls who had ridiculed a serious matter. Like me, she knew how to hold issues in a closed fist. She would be my wife. I felt it stronger than before. Although I had continued to remove garbage from the streets and open blocked gutters wherever the need arose, and despite the fact that I still washed my clothes and ate stale bread for breakfast, acknowledgement from the sycophancy that invariably surrounds a powerful boss made me feel some sense of achievement. That in turn made me resolve to reinforce my commitment to remain rooted to the ground. Each morning at rush hour, I stood on the main road with my sackcloth bag, appealing for money in exchange of the trademark receipts that showed the public of a lifelong refund facility. My action created curiosity amongst my colleagues who wondered why I needed to beg personally. I explained my those who held me in respect looked puzzled, if not embarrassed. Excuse me. I explained my position. Everything bad has a deterrent. This action is a deterrent against arrogance. When we are not conscious, we fall prey to its seduction, and terrible consequences follow. As no amount of achievement is enough, no amount justifies arrogance. Begging on the road creates humility and fights the false exaggeration of success. When they continued to work to look intrigued and embarrassed, I elaborated. When people praise me, like all human beings, I too feel elated and need to remind us both of my basic value. I am a beggar. I beg for alms from other people's labors. I am not a leader or a saint. No one should forget that, least of all myself. I would stand at a crossroad, and a few cars would slow down in front of me. An outstretched arm would hastily drop a few rupees into my bowl. They neither looked up nor were interested in receipts and delays. The nature of the urgency was obviously motivated by self interest. The nation's entire energy was driven by that affliction. I envisaged it being channelized towards human uplift and knew the untapped strength of the Muslim people awaiting direction. Somewhat like I think the Qadar party and all. Sometimes the driver of an expensive car made the effort to park by the roadside and walk up to me, handing me a few notes. He would plead, "Pray that I get my promotion. This money is towards that." I would watch him walk back and slide behind the wheel, amazed at the low level of human insight. People fumble like the blind, ignorant of life's dynamics, expecting abundant rewards for nothing. They lived by a warped sense of right and wrong, having limited their purpose. Entire nations moved away towards void, creating nothing. They reduced their relevance by the minute, blindly consumed and swarmed by the mirage of luxury and consumerism, completely oblivious to its debilitating effects on their own natures. They desired the whole world as well as heaven free of any cost. Those who gave something gave without understanding the purpose of giving. They contributed towards personal rewards, to forestall punishment, erase sins, assuage bad conscience, and make impressions. Hardly anyone gave out of human compassion, a purpose greater to the Almighty than any good deed. In fact, humanitarianism was the only method that did guarantee his blessings. Even in that, they were motivated by self interest, and the intention lost the reward. Now, none gave enough of what they owned, not their time nor their money. The world remained illiterate about life and God. Instead, it was possessed by illusions. Guys, this is Ramadan, so I actually dozed off in the car a bit. Yeah. You stay hungry all day, then at sunset, you eat something, and yeah, you get, yeah. Anyway, so, just try to wake myself up with some light, relaxing music, and back to Edhi. Where was I? Right. I find music very inspirational. Some people have school of thought that music can be distracting. I find that music, at least it gives me peace, a lot of peace. Anyway, back to Edhi. So I'll just pause this. 2 months had passed and much had happened. My colleagues were helping me sort out paperwork at the office when Bilquis entered in her black burqa. Her cold eyes sparked above the sheer fabric that she had pulled across the rest of her face. Through it, the shadow of her smile warmed my heart. I became embarrassed at the presence of my friend and said abruptly, "Go upstairs and clean the room." She turned around and walked away. After my colleagues left, I remained alone and pondered over the last few weeks. Bilquis and I were married on Thursday, the 19th of April, in the year 1966. It was Monday, the 23rd. I had neither attended our wedding celebration nor been present at the Rukhsati from her mother's home to mine. The bride was taken away by my friend's family. and she spent the night without me at their home, returning to her mother's the following morning. My schedule thereafter did not allow me either to contact her or send for her, not until now, when I had directed her upstairs. When Bilki's mother had received my message through Khala, she had been concerned about my financial position. My daughter will have nothing to eat if the dispensary shuts down. How can I keep her into such insecurity? I had assured Khala that I was neither dependent on the shop nor took anything from it, and could support a family on my personal income. Rabia Ma had then delegated Maria Mustani to raise the issue and left the decision to her daughter. Bilkis's idea of romantic heroes were Indian film idols like Dilip Kumar and Raj Kapoor, with whom I had no resemblance at all. When she heard of my proposition to Bilkis, Amina warned her. Um, he will not let you breathe without his consent. Don't you see how mad he is? You'll have to live his life. She also spoke to Hala and Rabiama. Edhi is not normal, he's a jinn. Your daughter will have to die in this world and enter his realm. He won't even see her again. Bilkis's friends threw a fit. Have you gone mad? What life will this old Molvi give you? He'll lock you up and enslave you. They advised her to marry the rich boy. Think of your future, you will have none with him. Jokes and jibes become their pastime. Our husbands will take us for picnics and sightseeing. Yours will take you to visit graveyards. Another friend pointed out, we will be beautifying ourselves while you'll be embalming and scenting the dead. They would all laugh, Bilkis included. Impersonating my hoarse voice, they mimicked, Bilkis, have you bathed the bodies? Bilkis, have you scrubbed the toilets and cleaned the nits of the destitutes? Hurry up, every minute death is approaching. They rolled with laughter at the mere idea of a life with me. Nobody said anything positive. I presumed there was nothing good to say about me as a befitting husband for a sprightly young girl. The Maimun Saints had also surfaced. Bilkis's paternal uncle, on behalf of his boss, offered her 25,000 rupees to appear in court and accuse me of trying to molest her. Rabia Ma refused. At the dispensary, my colleagues were also averse to my marriage with a girl so much younger than myself. I had heard their opinions from somebody or the other. Edhi will end his mission on the day he marries her, or else Edhi will soon wear a suit and carry a briefcase befitting his young bride. They said, she's a teddy girl. She will not allow the crease of her clothes to crumple. Surely she will render him useless, and soon we will have him off our backs. After all these opinions, Bilkis had given her own judgment. She laughed off all their aspersions and consented, including the matter and proving destiny stronger than all hostility. She said, I can leave him if he troubles me. There are many divorced girls working at the dispensary. I can also work. What's in a divorce? It's a positive girl. Although Bilkis had stopped coming to the dispensary, the days leading to the weddings were happy for me. I heard from Hala that Rabia Ma had given her 500 rupees to make new clothes, and 15 grams of gold in the form of jewelry to wear on her wedding day. She had made 4 beddings and purchased the necessary pots and pans to start a kitchen in her married home. I had rejected the tradition of the bride's family making bridal apparel for the bridegroom. Much to their dismay, I informed them that I would wear my old clothes. Accompanied by my father and Aziz, I had gone to the mosque to sign the nikah document. After which the Molvi went to the bride's home to complete the procedure. When I was about to leave for Kharada to collect my wife, I was called to transport a child in a critical condition to hospital. That and many of the emergencies snatched the next 2 days from me so forcefully, keeping me from my bride so deliberately that I wondered as I rushed from one catastrophe to another, how could I have fixed a date for my person when all my days were on public call? I also wondered whether it might have been a subconscious effort to pin Bilkis down to my unpredictable routine from the very beginning and console myself. It was better for her to understand that she came after, just a little after my commitment. Edhi's marriage spread through the overpopulated buildings of our locality. Opponents now alleged that the abandoned baby I had given to Bilki's care was ours. Remove Edhi, he has sinned, he is a scoundrel, they shouted. 3 men arrived to confiscate the dispensary keys. I refused to give up possessions of my shop. A friend from the women community bailed me out by donating 50,000 rupees at this difficult juncture and announced it publicly. The vultures backed off. I prayed that my work survived the propaganda while my father reassured me there will be no problem if you persevere. If you persevere. In the meantime, I heard that my wife had remained jovial despite my absence. Wearing her new clothes, she had excitedly gone knocking on each door in their building, exclaiming, I'm married, at last I'm married. Can you tell? Does it show? Am I glowing, blooming like a rose? When they asked where her husband was, she shrugged her shoulders disinterestedly. Who knows? Talk about how I look. Have I become beautiful? Now I walked up the narrow, chipped staircase that led to my private quarters, feeling apprehensive and facing Bilkis, worried that she might complain. She had swept and washed the room, heated the food, and cut a bowl of mangoes for me, and she accepted my short explanation without expressing any doubts. We were both nervous and shy, avoiding eye contact, looking away, or up at the ceiling, or down at the floor, until I decided to break the impasse and commence a relationship. That night I came home very late and slept outside on the bench. Next morning at dawn, she made me green tea and handed me my stale bread. Now that I'm here, you can have it freshly cooked, she said. I refuse. Suspicious of it being an attempt to change the pattern of my life, I remained with her shortly, and later that evening saw her working in the maternity unit. It was a tradition of the subcontinent that a bride rest and be pampered by her in laws and her husband for the first few days of marriage, after which she usually ended up a slave. When she had come down to her old clothes, and started scrubbing floors, the girls had exclaimed and advised, You mustn't do this. Edie will get used to disregarding your comforts. Behave like a new bride. Bilkis had retorted, I am better off following his pattern from the start. What's a few days rest of it? Few days of rest. I'm not ill. They objected to her old clothes. Look at your condition. Go up and wear something else. Change your shoes. Where are your bangles? They warned her. If you don't preserve your status, you will become a nobody. Bilkis brushed them aside. The status he has given me is of his wife. Look at his own condition. How can I be different? I was impressed at her maturity. She needed a little counseling. It took her a few days to become comfortable with me, and when we were done, she soon resumed her chatter. One evening, I went upstairs to find Bilkis in her wedding dress, a long white gown shimmering with silver flowers. Her sheer white veil was draped over her head, and she glowed as if a light bulb shone from within her. She had an endearing way of making her point, and complained that about our wedding. I found it impossible to be seriously annoyed at her lack of understanding when she said, There was no bridegroom, I was just married, a signature. Maybe it was not yours, perhaps after all, you're the wrong man. Waving her hands melodramatically, she said, There was no sage and no flowers, only old sheets and an empty room. It was a new kind of marriage. What a bride, what a night. I could not have dreamt it if I tried. I had disrupted a young girl's childhood dream and apologized. But she needed to remake it into reality. Soon she was reenacting the whole ceremony, repeating her vows, poking her fingers into my chest to make me repeat mine. She demanded the traditional mudikhai that a groom represents his bride when he lifts the veil to see her for the first time as his wife. After much pestering on her side and resilience on mine, I gave her 250 rupees, instructing her not to speak of the waste to anybody. She made it into a joke. So much money? How can I tell anyone you gave me so much money? They will die of envy of my wealth, for my wealth. On another day, she again whispered in my ear to come up when I was free. When I joined her, I was taken aback by what I saw. Whose clothes are you wearing? I snapped. She laughed gleefully, spinning around, displaying herself like a beautiful peacock, raising her foot to show off tight pajamas gathered many times at her ankle. I objected sharply to the different colors she had applied on her face, especially the bright red paste on her lips and the loud green powders plastered over her eyelids. She rebuffed me. It is the right of every woman to look beautiful. You cannot stop me. Then she became serious. Is it because you don't want other men to look at me? I sat her down and explained, natural beauty like a beautiful landscape needs no tampering, Bilkis. My wife is surrounded by people influenced by the power of money. Her friends enjoyed normal lives of relative luxury, and Amina never tired of her preaching. The rich have better pedigrees. Their bungalows and cars have taught them more about life than we know. Bilkis had remarked defensively. But a good temperament is more essential to marriage than other things. At that, Amina raised her eyebrows and smirked. Does he have that? Amina also never tired of reminding the girls and indirectly Bilkis, you beggars, who has taught you to sit on chairs? Who, but me, has given you an opportunity? I would touch my ears at the danger that had brushed past me. The Maiman community. Always at my heels, now alleged that Bilkis was expecting before our marriage. That she married me for that reason. Otherwise, is this beautiful young girl crazy to marry an old miser like Edhi? They asked soon after Bilkis did become pregnant, and we hoped that our child would not be premature to confirm the lie. She would be telling everyone who asked why she married me, answering what she believed. Edhi is my fate. Even if I had married another, I would have ended up with him. We had big work. Bilkis, we have to bring a social revolution. Will you help me, support me? I said every time we were alone, she would sulk. Why don't you talk to me about love? Tell me romantic dialogues. I would press my point home. We have to work. We have no time for romance. Sometimes exasperated, she would sigh and say, what is this revolution buzzing in my ears all the time? The only revolution you can make with a wife is produce children. I want you to speak to me about love. I lectured her on love. It is not a sentiment that words can express. You must learn to judge it by my feelings and passion for the whole of mankind. In that, you will also find yourself. Develop a practical and simple understanding of all things. Anytime, anywhere. I would put forward my request to her. Will you help me? Will you support me? Be a strength to me. One night, while lying on the bench outside, a film song exploded and tore the silence apart. I was shocked. When it struck me that it blared from my own room. Flushed red with anger, I marched up. As I drew closer, it became harder, louder, and made me angrier. I charged the machine and turned it off, screaming at my wife, what a distraction from CS4. Can you not understand anything at all? She was not provoked by my offensive tone. Instead, she shook her head at me and sang the song from where I had disrupted it, chanting, if you had to live in somebody else's heart, why, oh why did you come into mine? I pursued my lips. I pursed my lips to control a smile. She noticed and made a face pretending to sulk. Why did you marry me if all you have in your heart is love for your work? I began to explain again, but stopped. Her expression revealed that she was fully aware of the reason and was attracting my attention the only way she knew. Of course, I wished to spend more time with her. But time was short, and I had to deprive us both of that joy. Whenever she heard me coming up the stairs, shouting some instruction or the other, she would start singing. A revolution is coming, sirens are blaring, emergency is declared. I would control my laughter, feigning annoyance, but not for long. She was a master at making serious matters laughable. She made her complaints so jestingly that they were never disturbing. Bilkis, according to her family traditions, wore a burqa before our marriage. When she complained about how it hindered her movements and made her feel claustrophobic during her pregnancy, I explained my theory. Burqa is a symbol of modesty. It has little to do with what you cover and more to do with what you expose. The defensive posture of women towards male moral corruption focuses on her and makes responsibility towards his own conduct unachievable. Only a way of life based on a moral code can protect women. Otherwise, it is merely that same old whitewash without any long-term results. She replaced her burqa with a chadar. I now focused on the administrative development of the organization. Any discrepancy or flaw allowed to escape corrective action in this phase would encourage a breeding process in the system, which would be beyond control. Extensive dealings with all manner of people had made me expert on human assessment. Returning to my small beginning theory, I noticed that the smallest reflection in personalities unraveled important and habitual behavior patterns. This asset of accurate judgment had sharpened with time. Now it took only a few words for the true nature of man to surface. I recollected how I had stopped at the smallest theft. I had stopped the smallest thefts by this method. It had been a difficult task. I now chuckled at the thieves. They thought me an illiterate fool, but I was a natural master in the art of trickery. I would spot a discrepancy, mark the culprits, separate their accounts, and monitor them individually without betraying the slightest suspicion. When I caught the thief, I never dismissed him. Instead, I focused on him, studied him, found the opening which enabled him to extract small cash, and blocked it without any announcement. allow him to work and increasing, allowing him to work and increasing my knowledge. The sense of cunning sharpens under pressure. We both would operate with heightened ambition. Soon the thief would discover another loophole. I would detect it and quietly close it, but he found another and another, never suspecting that I was always looking over his shoulder. It was my business. Eventually, when there was no alternative for him but to accept to earn only what was his due, he either begged leave or else I dismissed him. Many thieves passed through my hands. Each found new ingenious methods. Each had a completely individual style of maneuvering. That these men were of extreme importance to the strong foundations of the organization cannot be overemphasized. Now, cash discrepancies were detected in 7 days and missing receipts in 12. I would see the thieves somewhere and joke with them. Tell me some of the ways, those that are more difficult to detect. The team that survived my vigilant eyes and an army of volunteers worked with missionary zeal. Those who had come for merely passing their time or to spy on my work and inform the saints had left without any success. As my colleagues were not missionaries and had families to feed, they were employed as razakars on a monthly allowance or on a contract basis. I had always told them, if someone gets a better job, they can leave with my blessings. Yet I had acquired the services of many committed young people. I did not care to dig up past involvements, nor did I attempt to investigate histories. In fact, I was not in the least interested. Judging solely by compassion, efficiency, and general values, old friends would urgently acquaint newcomers with my temperament. He asks about the smallest work every half hour until it is complete. Right. Oh, well. Okay. If the day if the day were longer, it would be better for him. We get tired and sleepy, but not he. He believes that as death comes unannounced, we cannot shut shop for a single moment. The staff at the maternity unit were not permitted to accept money from patients, nor were they allowed to drink tea or eat upstairs. Now that I had a wife, I heard stories that I chose to ignore, but was well aware that she was breaking the discipline. When the girls were given a tip, she encouraged them to purchase biscuits, tea, and puri bhaji, posted one girl to keep watch at the top of the stairs and another at the bottom, while the rest safely enjoyed the tea party. Right, so I'll continue this later.
One day, Bilquis exposed herself. What difference does it make if a girl takes a reward after delivering a child? A few rupees will not corrupt her. I had been very angry, only so that she would not have a license. She went running up 2 steps at a time to warn the girls. If the patient gives you a tip, refuse it. Only accept it, and only accept if they agree and you are sure that they will not go down and mention it to anyone, not to anyone. My wife and I had developed a strong bond despite the fact that my amorous advances took over all our time together. She invariably objected about this behavior. When will we ever speak to each other? I would hush her and remind her of our whole life being ahead of us. She caught me on that one. What about your theory of only the present being ours, the future being absolutely uncertain? At that time, I would put aside the principles and teachings of life. Her pregnancy made her feel nauseous and ill, a condition that punctuated 9 months. She was moody, irritable, and no longer chirping and joking like before. Although she continued to cook and clean, as well as work at the maternity unit and the destitute home, Bilquis would run away from me. She would hide where I could not find her. When I did, she complained bitterly. Sometimes, when she was cooking or cleaning, I would appear and disturb her. I tried to pamper her in other ways. If she vomited, I did not hesitate to put my palms in front of her mouth, nor did I leave the cleaning to her. I brought fruit and cut it up for her, washed her clothes with mine, and began doing all the housework, while she lay watching me, cautious as a cat that any time I saw her looking a little well, I might abandon work and reach out. By now, the Mayman opposition had somewhat pulled back. Whatever they continued to say was of small consequence for me. No loss deterred me either, especially loss of face and public opinion. For me, these were insignificant factors. I had no face to seek approval for. From whom and for what My work was based purely on my intentions, but intentions were not dependable and had to constantly be guarded against 1,000 magnetic evils. Caution and suspicion warned me of a euphoria that could easily change my direction and lead me into a utopia. The eulogizing the newspaper articles that were replacing hostile propaganda demanded that I constantly summon up the deterrence, and I kept reminding myself, do not let them exaggerate your position. Many have fallen flat by forgetting their ordinariness. You are a small man trying to prove that the extraordinary is ordinary. The only reason my work was extraordinary was because others had lost their way. It was, in fact, an example of the capacity of all mankind. My desire to arouse this natural potential in all men was in the hope that it could make my abilities general. If I were the example, my life and work were meant to be common, not unique. I pasted a paper on the board of the dispensary saying, we do not need Edhi as an exception. We need mankind to arouse the Edhi in them, so that he dominates other examples that have taken hold of their faculties. The dispensary. Beautiful. We need mankind to arouse the Edhi in them, so that he dominates other examples that have taken hold of their faculties. The dispensary was always swarming with people rushing in and out. All the empty spaces in the building I had rented were occupied. There were never any empty beds in the maternity ward, for which reason we had to extend the area for the training school. The destitute home was also lacking in space. People were spreading everywhere. That said Edhi. The ambulance fleet had been extended to 14 vehicles, and its service were recognized all over Karachi and interior Sindh, involving me round the clock in incidents that broke my heart. Bilkis began to accompany me for emergency work, and on one such occasion, we arrived at the scene of a common catastrophe created by an impatient bus driver, saving time. With the train seemingly a safe distance away, he had sped over a railway crossing, but the speed of trains, like the charge of oceans, is always deceptive. It crashed into the bus and dragged it far away before it could stop. Then it pulled back. We began to collect the limbs and pieces of meat crushed inside the mangled heap. Bilkis cried. Just now they were making a journey. Surely they had some plans. Now they've all gone. I explained. Not simply gone, Bilkis. They have been wiped out with no advance warning of extinction. The whole world lives oblivious of the end. The ingenious Islamic instruction to frequently visit graveyards and attend funerals was neglected, as were almost all its important instructions. I explained to my tearful bride, by observing this order, you remain balanced between life and death. Only the practical observation of death can create that balance. There is no stronger example. Does this accident not inform you of how close death has already crept? It stealthily follows, always a few steps closer, perhaps just a step behind. The sea would also beckon us often. Sometimes we would spend the entire night with the search team. In summer, it daily swallowed 4 to 5 people. Usually young boys, family and friends would wait at the shore, understandably impatient, highly emotional and shaken. Passing cars would stop to watch. One would assume or think that recording is a simple affair. It's far from it. Time and place, availability, so many things come into it. Of course, the beach at Mayani was the most dangerous. From Nasabad colony, 22 members of one family had left home for a picnic at dawn. By noon, 14 of them had drowned in the ocean's wild currents. The bodies were collected by our ambulances and brought to meet other. The colony was in mourning. The shops were shut. I led the string of ambulances through the narrow streets, thronged with shocked residents who respectfully moved aside at the bonnet of the first vehicle. Signs of mixed emotions were apparent in their expressions: fear of death and horror of drowning. To avoid taking 14 bodies into one home, I had earlier ordered the erection of a shamiana, like a huge tent, in the compound adjoining the house. We lined them up in preparation for funeral prayers. But then the usual occurred. They delayed burial until the elders of the family returned from Saudi Arabia. In this case, as in all others, I could understand the pain of those left behind. Practicality was not possible with human beings. Each body had to be preserved on an individual block of ice, and a wall of ice was constructed around them all. Here they lay through the night until the next morning. An old woman had lost 3 sons and daughter-in-laws, 2 daughters, 3 nieces, and 3 granddaughters. That must have been the mother of all of them, because that totals 14. Yeah, don't call me dumb, I just calculated this. Her wails tore through the vicinity. When she quietened down, she sobbed uncontrollably, relating disjointed stories about her loved ones, recalling little incidents that strike only when they become irredeemable. Lost investments for old age. She cuddled like a child in somebody's arms, her body shaking with her sobs. I made the trousseau for one. Where have the others gone? Where have they all gone? Before the dead were taken away, Bilkis helped the old lady to the balcony. Above the long line of bodies below, her devastated mind fumbled with her own reactions, and her tortured spirit panicked with nervous confusion. Which one should I cry for? Which is my daughter? Which is my son? She kept asking Bilkis. Did my daughter say anything? Did my son say something? I knew she would die again and again until her last breath. Another time, a cat had been crying on the boundary wall of a small house, demanding attention for 2 days, but it remained unheeded until a foul smell arose. A family of 4 adults and 6 children were discovered. Bilkis and I collected the chopped pieces of meat. We prepared them for burial at Mithadar and drove them back to the locality, where we witnessed an atmosphere of doom at the time of the departing funeral. Bilkis was bereft with grief. Her sensitive nature and happy spirit seemed to wilt each time. I told her on our way home from one such tragedy, "You cannot afford to wound your heart. It will disturb you psychologically. Convert your pain into practical energy and use it my way." Then, to every bereaved person, she would repeat, "Life is a laboratory. He gives and tests as well as takes and tests. Summon patience and tolerance in yourself by knowing reality. That is the only effective support." Every time she bathed a body, she remarked, "Who knows whether we will get a burial at home or where we will end and how?" Sitting in our room, her stomach protruding, she complained, "What kind of a man are you? The only place we go to are hospitals and graveyards. Why can we not go out for a picnic into the fresh air, to the sea or to the park?" I would laugh and ask her, "Then who will make the revolution?" My life had developed another dimension with Bilkis. Although there was now a sadness in her eyes, her spontaneous laughter brought back the joy that I had lost in myself. It revived my childhood spirit in a manner that eased and calmed the misery that lay embedded in my heart. We did not have much time alone. If we were together, the door was invariably knocked at, and I would be off. I would spend some time with her in the night, then come down to sleep on the bench outside. Next morning she would say, "You slept outside the door, but when I saw you on a charpoy far away at the other side, I saw you on a charpoy far away on the other side. Why do you also move around in your sleep?" It was a habit. The opposition I had faced and the fabricated stories that Bilkis heard about me made her express the attitude that was to cement our marriage. She told Khala, "Look at the way he works. Is there another like him? It will be a rock in the way of his enemies. I shall be a rock in the way of his enemies." Edhi was 1. I was 1. Now we are 11. I shall give him the support he deserves. She became a complete woman in the first year of our marriage. They alleged that I had cast a spell on her, made her as mad as myself. After our son was delivered by Amina, Bilkis joked with me. Too bad it was not hers. She didn't know whose son she was offered to have, and I said, Don't frighten me. Imagine you would have been his mother." My father named him Kutub. Bilkis soon returned to her normal self, chanting to her baby, "Revolution, revolution, we will bring a revolution." She never applied makeup again, nor did she wear her fine clothes anymore, but she kept me reminded of them. What should I wear to go visiting today? We can visit my friends in their husbands' homes. Please, let's go. Let's wear something new. Please, please. I would scold her and she would become sarcastic. Should we go to the sea instead while I look for shells and you might find a body? Sometimes she excitedly recalled little stories about her relatives and suddenly stopped and exclaimed, hitting her forehead with the open palm of her hand, "Of all our relatives are alive and well, but we cannot see them unless they die. Why can we not see them while they still live?" Imitating me in a hoarse voice, she would reply herself, "We are too busy making relationships for the next world." Shaking her head, she would say, "We will have a real following in the hereafter. At least there we will know many people." She'd sigh and stare at me in amazement. What a strange man God created. How did I land with you? It was destiny. She was indeed my soulmate. Followed a step behind exactly as if my mind worked inside hers. She commented on how that happened. "You fill my brain with your own. No time for love, none for romance. Only in one respect, I am a wife." She had discovered other methods to avoid me. When she heard of my return to meet others, she would run down to join the girls and pretend to be engrossed with their work, making noisy declarations, sending warning signals to me. "This work is urgent. If I were not sitting on your heads, everything would go wrong. Watch me, I am here to show you." I would still call her away and explain her duties as a wife. She would cut me short. "But you gave me to your work. I don't have to think of love." On one occasion, I asked her seriously if I could take a second wife, but she hated the idea. Milky's was never hostile or non-serious about my mission in real terms. She understood it well, but converted it into a light-hearted matter so that there was always something to joke about. She told Hala, "Thank God for work. Without it, I swear, there would be no laughter in our lives." A man came into the dispensary, shouting at the top of his voice, "Where is Edhi? Take me to him at once." This was not a difficult request, as I had no protocol, and he walked into my office, raising his voice angrily. "The people of Mitadar are complaining. Their children are afraid of the corpses you bring here. Open a place somewhere else." I looked at him carefully and replied after assessing him, "Are the people not afraid of the inevitable? Or would they rather not know?" He shouted, screamed, and left. Wilkes told me, "He's right to object. After all, you're not burying your dependents. You have opened a dhanda, a business." When I remained silent, she inquired why I was not reacting. I had to rush off and answer from the doorway. "Because he's a fool." Wilkes laughed and shouted after me, "Distribute invitation cards when I die. If you're innovative, it will be good for business." Within 3 days, the angry man returned to request help for his brother, who had died of heart failure on the 6th floor of a building. His temper had cooled. I picked up my ambulance keys and brought the body home. In New Karachi, we found an unknown man crushed into mincemeat with an axe. There was nothing to do except spread the meat onto a sheet and wrap it up. In another congested area, people began to fall ill and complained of a foul smell in the tap water. When they found a corpse in the water tank, nobody was prepared to take it out. And so Bilkis and I went. It was so rotten that it came apart in my hands. I explained to Bilkis, when a mortal sets the date for another's elimination, he advances the inevitable finality. More than that, he challenges God, and this low understanding sends a chill up my spine. But I also told her, who are these criminals, if not those mutilated by society the world over? Who are we to judge mankind, when we are not aware of the circumstances that bred the crime? I pain for the victims as well as for the criminals. Driving back, despondent and alone after some terrible tragedy or other, she would distract me. "Remove your beard. I want to be married to a young man. If you remove it, you will look 20. Please remove it. It will not affect your work." Sad, withdrawn, and irritable, I would scold her to stop the stupidity, but she always persisted. "Why can you not wear the red vest you told me about? If you wear it and sit in the sun, your skin will glow and I will look at you from the window." Ignoring my stern expression, she gave me a most annoying example. "Look at Aziz. He looks so smart and he's only 5 years younger. You can look the same if you try." I would snap. "Why should I be like somebody else? I can only be myself." I would begin a lecture until somewhere along the line, observing her fervent nods and enthusiastic responses, I realized that she did not need it. By then she would have drawn me far away from the anguish of the tragedy. He's really his true soulmate. He is. Sometimes she would come home after some tense event and flinging her arms up in the air declare, "Thank God for this cool air-conditioned room. It is the luxury of a winter breeze in a summer desert." She would spread out on the mattress and sigh with relief while I shook my head in disbelief. Bilquis had the extraordinary ability to dispel any tension I might feel, I told her. As tension is a lethal obstacle in the way of my mission, I think God made you for me. I would, however, warn her not to dream of decadent things. Luxury causes inefficiency, lethargy, and dependence. It creeps in stealthily, without notice, and soon the victim loses conscience, sheds his values, and flings himself into layers and layers of corruption. Now, Tamina Durrani, much as you inspired me to read this book, I remember when I went to TTF and I and Shanaz were waiting for you, and you came in with your protocol, the 20 soldiers, the policemen, etc., and your big Land Cruiser and the driver, etc. And soon as you entered TTF, you said, "It's so hot, we must go inside the AC where it's air-conditioned." How did you spend 2 years with Edhi? I actually wonder sometimes. Maybe you need to spend another 2 with him, and may God give him those extra 2 years too. Bilquis loved to hear me talk about these issues that she provoked. I wondered at her and inquired why she teased me so. She would think a moment and come up with things like, "I'm teaching you how to express yourself." I knew it was an effort to lighten the weight on my shoulders. She had so little time with me that she had not spoken like this. There would only be work to speak of. That had she not spoken like this, there would only be work to speak of. When I told her, she corrected me. "Don't think you have set me free to joke. Even the subject is always connected to your work. If it were about other things, you would not even hear me." I guess she was right. Sometimes, leaving for one of the centers, she would see me and walking back would chant loudly to me, "Work, work, we have to work, we have to bring a revolution." Bilquis smiled and laughed with everything to bring a revolution. Bilquis smiled and laughed with everyone. She was kind to everyone in the locality, making up sufficiently for the terror I created. Neither was it a problem for her to handle men. I was not at all insecure about her close working proximity with the opposite sex, and I never discouraged it. Excuse me. Soon after our marriage, Bilquis was approached by other men. This was due to my unkempt appearance, bad temper, and the lack of time I gave her. Many people thought she would look for love elsewhere. Some men offered, "If you need anything, Bilquis, ask us for it." Without being rude, she replied firmly, "Don't ever offer me anything again. I can ask my husband if I need something." An old friend of hers from Dubai had also said to her, "You should not waste your life living with an old workaholic. Come with me to Dubai, where you will be better appreciated." And when Bilquis broke her ties with her, I assured her that just as she did not cheat on me, there was no question that I would. When I taunted her about the rich boy she might have married, she was quick to throw Amina to me. Then we both teased one another about what could have been. She loved dreaming of a life as a chauffeur in a big air-conditioned car, could drive me around. I would be cool while people outside would be smoldering in the heat. Amina, does that sound familiar? Throwing her arms apart as far as they could stretch, she would exclaim, "From the thousands and thousands of clothes in my cupboard, a maid would dress me and make me beautiful." Familiar, very familiar. When it was my turn to dream of how I would be faring with Amina, Bilquis would take over before I had a chance to speak. You would be in hell. A tailor would be stitching clothes in the maternity unit, and corpses would be banned from entering your home. You would have to throw your old clothes in the garbage and wear a suit and tie to the dispensary. All the destitutes would be free to roam the streets again. We would both dream her dreams to have my nightmares, frightening me further, she would predict. At best, he would be divorced and find no other wife in this whole world. I had No option but to agree with that. She would force me to thank God for giving her to me. Have you thanked him today? Have you? Have you? I would hold my ears and say, Bilkis, I thank him all the time. You never let me forget. And I did not forget, for who more than me knew the asset she was for me. A woman is the minister of the home. She is either a good one or a bad one. For a man to mold a woman towards a higher life is not difficult. She is a natural social worker, child-bearer and child-rearer. She has great social guts, stronger nerves, and superior sensitivity towards injustice in the male. But in turn, she must be valued with appreciation and justice. Without it, the balance in a partnership becomes unequal. Marriage, then, is nothing but disharmony and discord. Bilkis displayed courage and determination whenever a controversial and risky decision troubled me. Take the matter further. Do not retreat in fear unless you are sure the step is wrong. When I felt it was, she would suggest, withdraw without hesitation and take the consequences of the failure lightly. It's only a mistake. It will not destroy everything you believe in or want to do. It is not death, not final. Her stand was always based on truth and reality. When she saw me even slightly despondent, she made sure I was not irritable. She would promise me, I will never let you down. I will never stray from your path. We will hold hands and face it all together. My wife was a rebel at heart, always armed with a brave reaction to my problems, and I told her, just as a woman can frighten a man into complete immobility, or also, a brave woman's husband cannot be weak. With her by my side, my confidence to take decisions is strengthened. I no longer feared mistakes and simply withdrew from an error when it was established. Whatever worry lingered in some corner of my mind, Bilkis swept away. She scolded Amina when she pointed out my disinterest in her comfort. It is never easy to be the wife of a great man. I know my marriage well, but I also know that the advice of ordinary people can disintegrate it. I love Edhi's mission as much as I love him. Rabia Amma completed her trainings as a midwife under Amina and took charge of the maternity home to train women in midwifery and nursing. Lady doctors from government hospitals, despite having degrees, had no practical experience and would come for that to her. She was so proficient that she would touch a protruding belly and predict 8 days, no, 10 days more to go. Apart from glimpsing my mother-in-law at work, we remained distant and reserved with each other, hardly ever conversing, unless it was strictly related to work. I could not but be indebted to her for the support and peace she had given to my turbulent and unusual life. She had always advised Bilkis, either belong to someone or make someone belong to you. It was a simple theory with a deep meaning. Upstairs she sat in command like a lioness, monitoring every move under her mobile eyes. Her strong build and rock-like presence made everyone fall into discipline. When she raised her powerful voice and called out, the girls would drop their syringes and run. She often advised them, work despite hindrances to achieve your complete capacity and do it under any eventuality. Sometimes she would joke, in times of need, treat a donkey like a father. It is clever to move with the times. Then you will remain on track. Despite being firm and authoritative, she was also reasonable. If any girl came to her with a sound excuse for an early break, she would let her slip away unnoticed, warning her of indiscretion. The others will demand the same facility if they know. But she did this with more than one girl concealing each from the other. I told my colleagues, women's quarters have a centuries-old survival instinct and are beyond male control. Many women who had initially approached us for financial help had accepted the option of training in midwifery and nursing instead. The most backward areas of Karachi like Musalai, Mitadar and Liari, the remote rural areas of Mirpur Khas and Thar, were now churning out economically independent women, equipped to serve in an environment that lacked just about everything. Some women earned as much as 2,000 rupees per month, and the independence strengthened their domestic positions, whereby they were no longer held in economic bondage. Amongst those suffering from circumstances were women who had struggled through violent marriages, only to be thrown out with young children. When Rabia Ma had trained them, many opted to remain with us and, along with other cases, became part of the organization. When one of them asked Rabia Ma for a holiday on a religious occasion, she could never bring herself to refuse and deliberately sent her to me. I, of course, screamed, shut down the dispensary, bolt the doors, and tell all the pregnant women to hold back their babies. God should not let babies out tomorrow because we are busy celebrating Islam. She shrunk back. A girl's mothers came to the office. I made the old woman sit down and politely inquired after her health. We talked for a few moments until she said, "The girls are against my daughter." "She is." I cut her short and asked her to leave. She tried to continue. "The nurses trouble her. I motioned with my hand for her to stand up in order to leave at once. These stories always made the rounds very quickly and fear of me increased. I let it. On another day, I walked into the maternity unit to find Rabia Ma and a few girls sitting on a mat, chanting. Without thinking, I blew up. I operate a health center here. Had I wished to train girls in prayer, I would not have opened a hospital. Who allowed this? Although I yelled without looking at the women, especially Bilqis's mother, everybody quickly resumed work. I learned that after this episode, Bilqis implored her mother to leave the unit. "You can open a dispensary on your own. I'll help you search for premises. I'll purchase the supplies and send you patients. You'll earn more money alone. Please, please, let's do it. I'll even work with you, give injections and take blood pressure. We'll get a television and in the evening you can watch dramas." But Rabia Ma refused to leave, advising her daughter, "Don't be disturbed by what your husband said. He was right. When women make issues out of small matters, they create disharmony in their lives." Bilqis did not complain or raise the matter with me, but she said to my colleagues, "His principles are as important to me as they are to him. But why should my mother come under their fire?" I was touched by Bilqis' involvement at the destitute home, where she was on a first-name basis with each and every resident. With the mentally disturbed, she had a special friendship. She would ask some old women, "Tell me your whole life story." Then she listened attentively, interrupting the women's tale with earnest questions, and the long, endless narration of disjointed and imagined events would go on and on. Later I would ask, "What were you talking about?" You know she was not speaking the truth. Her reply was close to my own heart. Don't all normal people lie about themselves? Making impressions and living out fantasies? The enfeebled only express events that shattered their minds. They don't lie. Once, on walking into the dispensary, I heard my sister Zubaida introduce herself and people in the queue moved to give her precedence. The compounder began to assist her. I blew up. "This is not a family concern, so go to end of the queue and wait. No one can get across here." She felt insulted and left without her medicine. But I could not tolerate preferential treatment to anyone. When I was in this foul mood, Bilqis avoided me. I was not in control then to even vaguely recall her words. "Don't insult me in front of Amina. She sniggers and mocks me afterwards." At these times, Bilqis was as afraid of me as the rest of my staff, in fact more so because she was also conscious of a public insult from her husband, which invariably occurred during the course of the day. "Where are you women? Come here, each and every one of you. Speed up. I don't have time for gliding fairies." They rushed and ran, emerged from all directions. "Who did this? Whose work is this? Answer me at once. Speak up quickly." I stripped beds in the hospital, undid packets of medical supplies, emptied cupboards and shouted, "Do it again, do it properly or get out of the door." Pointed to the door, ordering them all to turn in its direction, making it clear. "Do you see it? Now either this work will be perfect or you will be out from here." The girls whispered to Bilqis, "Take him up and cool him off." She hated the crassness of this comment and snapped at them to mind their own business. Afterwards, she rejected my advances and pushed me away from her, complaining, "Now get away from me. You insulted and embarrassed me publicly. You could have scolded me privately. I don't need your affection." I would scare her with the prospect of another wife. "If you will not let me come near you, I will need a woman and get her. Then don't blame me." That comment always made her anger dissipate and transform into laughter. "Another wife? You want another wife?" Then, when she had laughed enough, she reminded me, "No one else will last the day. Can you not see from your life? Who will want to marry an emergency service?" The quarrel forgotten and the topic changed, she pestered me. "Marry a psychotic girl. That will be service in the way of humanitarianism. She would get after me with that one. Please marry, please sacrifice, I will find someone for you, please, please. I would withdraw my threat in the wake of her barrage. She was gifted with that rare quality so important in the life of a possessed man, the ability to spread happiness. It illuminated all matters. Everything around her was steeped in happiness. She smiled at any opportunity and with anyone. I warned her firmly to control herself when somebody died. There are some occasions that demand seriousness, Bilquis. It is foolish to live in one mood. She would then joke about the inevitable incident. Sometimes, cautious for mischief, I watched over her while she conducted serious work, but she would be so genuinely involved then and so earnest that there was never any opportunity to correct or reprimand her. I instilled my philosophy in her. The acquiring of knowledge is stressed in Islam because without it man is but a stray beast. No ilm or knowledge is more significant than the study of life itself. And can be acquired by the simple method of sensitivity towards your surroundings. Education can be extracted from all things. No man is excluded from this divine source. It is equally available to all of mankind. I would point out simple examples from nature to her. Each day symbolizes a whole life. Dawn is birth and night is death. Then each season, every year, through the span of existence, is a running calendar. But how many of us search ourselves in a bloom, in spring, or in a summer, or in the withering of an autumn and the death of winter? How many of us interpret the instructions as progress and movement? There is no stagnation. Security is impossible. Evidence was always close at hand. A young mother of 3 was so concerned for her children's safety and for fear of an accident or a kidnapping. She walked with them to and fro from school herself. All day she followed them everywhere, never allowing them out of sight. She protected them from the sun for fear of a heat stroke and from the cold for fear of pneumonia. Sounds familiar? They could not play in the street in case somebody would hurt them, nor eat at food stalls for fear of contracting a disease. It all came to naught. One night the children found a matchbox in their room and the foam mattress caught fire. Their screams alerted the parents, who rushed in, picked up the burning mattress and ran out with it. Behind them the entrance door shut. The father ran to find an axe while the desperate mother tried to break the door with her hands. He returned, attempting to break the iron window grill, but everything was ablaze. People gathered, the door was broken down and the fire was extinguished. The children had clung together and burned to death. The mother lost her mental faculties at the age of 28. Bilquis was devastated. On our way home I told her, "Do you see that it is impossible to build a safeguard against death? The security achieved in life is an illusionary assurance. We spend our energies towards settling in a world that guarantees no tomorrow. That the illusion does not shatter. Despite these practical experiences, an example of Jahaliya, or ignorance, the age of total ignorance. On his way to England for a bypass surgery, a doctor was seen off at the airport amidst the tears and prayers of his family. Tying an Imam Zaman on his arm, Imam Zaman is like an amulet on his arm to invoke divine protection. They prayed for his long life and embarked upon their separate journeys. All five passengers died in a road accident. The doctor was informed of tragedy at Heathrow Airport and returned to Pakistan on the next flight, whereas he buried his 20-year-old daughter and son-in-law, a young son and 2 nephews. He lived to later adopt a child. That death in an operation theatre was further from the reality round the corner, was a clear example. But the world remained unaffected by the departure of man. Only the aggrieved suffered, and that also not for too long. For us, incidents of human mortality were an everyday feature. We were confronted with its undeclared arrival many times in the day. Shrouded bodies lay waiting to be transported in the office. Each made us look a little differently at the world, and I would say to Bilquis, the fact that we deal with tragedy constantly does not mean that each individual the world over has no experience of its lessons. But he continues to take life seriously in areas that he needs to take lightly, and vice versa. Beautiful. Facts are so obvious to those who reflect upon patterns, so meaningless to those who do not. I also explain my permanent rush. I rush permanently. In keeping with an uncertain future, no work can be left pending for later. If the world is at peace with time, it's another reflection of its simpleness. Bilquis had, despite maintaining a cheerful countenance, taken each and every tragedy to her heart. Her laughter never lessened, but the sparkle in her eyes no longer accompanied it. It had died with the 100 she had buried, and I asked her one day, "Have I taken it away?" She said with a smile that had now become an expression, "There was no inner source. When I knew nothing, I lived like those who have hope and fervor forever. Now, like you, I know and live the reality you choose to live. How can I ever be truly happy again?" I told her not to lose herself to pain. It must not negate either the purpose or the quality of your own experience, of your own existence. You must balance the two. She wanted to know, why then are you driven increasingly? Can you live the two? No, of course, I could not, but it saddened me to see my wife's cheerful spirit fade away. She, however, did not forget that her greatest service was to eliminate my sorrows and assured me, despite herself, if I was not affected, I would be inhuman. But I am not unhappy. Joy is not lost. It has only been subverted by reality. Don't worry for me. How can I ever be truly happy again? I told her not to lose herself to pain. It must not negate either the purpose or the quality of your own existence. You must balance the two. She wanted to know, why then are you driven increasingly? Can you live the two? No, of course I could not. But it saddened me to see my wife's cheerful spirit fade away. She, however, did not forget that her greatest service was to eliminate my sorrows and assured me, despite herself, if I was not affected, I would be inhuman. But if I am not unhappy, joy is not lost. It has only been subverted by reality. Don't worry for me. After Qutb, the two daughters were born within a period of 4 years and in quick succession to each other. We named them Kubra and Almas. Khala was poor, and so we had also adopted her daughter Zeenat, who was 10 years old at the time. The 4 children were cared for by their grandmother, Khala, and the nurses. We hardly saw them except between emergencies and work and under the work, and that only when they played downstairs. In those days, tuberculosis was a fatally contagious disease. The inhuman treatment meted out to its victims, even by family members, had made me open the tuberculosis ward on the 2nd floor. Bilkis and I had worked at such close quarters with these patients that the doctors declared us immune, had asked us to remove our children from the premises. After living in the Mithadar office for 5 years, the family shifted to Rabia Ma's 2 rooms in Karatar. A month later, Bilkis began to pester me to empty a room on the upper story of the Mithadar's office. The children are making Rabia Ma go crazy in the small rooms. She's not young anymore. Her nerves are frail. I made arrangements and they moved back to Mithadar, but the very next morning they all announced in chorus, "We are not happy here." I asked Bilkis to be patient in the settling down period, but she would not listen and quickly packed everybody's belongings, loaded them upon their bags, and led her little group back to Karatar. Rabia Ma saw them from afar and exclaimed to Khala, "Oh God, they're coming back with all their baggage." Bilkis by now was too busy to have time to cook and clean, leave alone rare children, and so Rabia Ma and Khala took over her responsibilities. While we continued to live in Mithadar, Bilkis would join them for the evening meal, and I went only after Friday prayers, when the children would sit outside in the alley and wait for my ambulance to sputter in. Although I was distant, I was always affectionate. Bilkis tried very hard to satisfy her maternal instincts, laughing and playing boisterously with them whenever she could, as she did not consider her life wasted. So, also she did not suffer from pangs of guilt, and assured me they're better under Rabia Ma's supervision. At first, they will grow up like me. Sometimes back at the office she grew positive and pensive and sad. I would reassure her, "If they are anything like you, Bilkis, they will be a source of pride for me." Then she would smile again. Sometimes she would attack me about it. "In your book of humanitarianism, what happens to children? If you were supposed to have them, were you not allowed to live with them? Suppose we did not have Rabia Ma." I would make a mistake and joke. Then Amina would bring them up. She hated that and bounced back. Maybe the wife was meant to stay home. Tomorrow, I'll shift to Rabia Ma and look after my own children. The rest of the time, I'll comb my hair, dress up, and go with friends to the cinemas like before. She would lead me on with such earnestness that I would slip and take her seriously, and then her laughter would break the fear. "You look so scared. You cannot be without me." She was always asking for money, and I was always refusing. "Why can you not give me some? What will happen to us if you do? Will we commit a crime?" I would scold her and tell her to be sensible. "What more do you need, Bilkis? You have food, a roof, clothes. What else? The rest is only a trap. Be warned of it." She would not stop and sulk until she became distracted by something else. Her financial demands, however, were never over for long. I don't see why we cannot spend on essentials. Your standard of necessity represents the dead. I continue to discourage your spending. Money demands respect, otherwise it does not stay. Saving from savings should be the order of each day. You need the bare minimum to live a life that leads where I'm taking you. With no passion for big cars, bungalows and furniture, the money I spent on living was more than enough. I explained to my wife. Rising prices simultaneously raises the need for higher earnings, possible only by some form of corruption. Those who succumb to this cycle cannot avoid its effects. Lust for money is accompanied by 1,000 evils. Its arrogance separates men from wife, children, and community. Affluence and power achieved in the spirit are unnaturally attained and have neither substance nor sustenance. We talk often about this subject. Money is an unrealistic asset, Bilkis, usually derived from the sweat of another. This qualifies its use by those who enjoy it. In most cases, it has a bad history. If you observe, do you not notice that its strength is similar to a house of cards, which the cleverest of us have been unable to protect against some slight, unpredictable breeze sweeping it flat? We treat money in the same manner as we do time, whereas neither is secure for tomorrow. Although it was not visible in anything, the saints knew of my personal wealth. Their concept of showing millions in turnover without it ever existing left them baffled by my theory of its presence without display to attract benefits. I became famous as a miser. Yet in matters related to money, my mind was so different from theirs. It was the mind of a banker. I had put up a social welfare industry with the people as shareholders. Much as Bilkis Sultan fussed with me, she confided in Rabia Ma and Khala, I don't need the things that make the world happy. My husband has given me more than money can buy. Amina, at last, found a healthy husband and left us to live a life of leisure. So with this ends chapter 5 of Tehmina Durrani's book, A Mirror to the Blind, an autobiography of Abdul Sattar Edhi till 1995. It's an engrossing book. I'm on page 123. And my God, it's approximately a third of the book, 360 pages. And I think I am on chapter 6. I've done well. No, I haven't. Still have a long way to go. Thank you very much for listening. Watch out for chapter 6.